when the Cubs were still the doormat of the National League.
Originally, the bleacher bums was a phrase put in by a caption writer in the newspaper when the photographer took the famous picture of the bed sheet.
Hit the bum.
Hit the bleacher bum. And Ron Grousel put his head through the center. It ran coast to coast the next day. What greater love has a fan than to sacrifice himself for a home run? That coined the phrase bleacher bum.
It started at maybe about 1963 or 64. I come with my cousin, Nick Pruder.
Kent and Jeannie Klein met in the bleachers in 1968 and were married a few years later, a wedding attended by most of their fellow bums. Kent has his own version of how the group originally came together.
It would be the bottom of the ninth. There'd be 2 outs. The Cubs would be losing 10-1. There'd be 2 strikes on the hitter. And Ron Grousel would be standing there cheering. Says, "Let's go, you people. Let's go. We got to rally." And, of course, they'd lose. And I said to my cousin, I says, "Next game, let's go sit with him." I said, "At least we can have fun here in the bleachers, even though the product on the field is not winning." And slowly but surely, more and more groups of people would come.
We'll talk about Ronnie Grousel. He seemed to be the leader of the bleacher bums in a way.
He was the catalyst.
Ronnie was the best.
Ronnie was like a natural leader, I think. He and a comedian.
He was the guy that we would look up to. He would come up with the different routines. He would come up with the different gimmicks and the cheers.
Look out! Go, get out!
Throw it back! We don't want your stinking overs! Throw it back!
The one thing that's lasted from then until now is throwing the opposing hitter's home run back on the field.
Did you guys start doing that?
Yes, we did.
Grousel was the first one to do it. In fact, if we found somebody that wouldn't do it, we'd pay them off.
There's the cheering section, led by the cheerleader out there.
That was Dick Selma in the bullpen, leading them on, and they rehearsed before the ball game. I think we've mentioned this before on the Game of the Week, Kurt.
Dick Selma started the bleacher bum cheers from the bullpen. He used to lead cheers in the bullpen. He used to put his hands up and get everybody going, and that kind of made Dick Selma kind of a mini cult figure too.
Every time I go to town, the boys all kick my dog around. Makes no difference if he is a hound. You better stop kicking my dog around.
And it's kind of like the treatment of the Cubs, you know what I mean? Kicking our dog around for years. They're still doing it, too.
The interplay between relief pitcher Dick Selma and the bleacher bums was typical of the close relationship that developed between Cub players and these, their most loyal fans.
We'd visit and have some beers with Ron Santo or Glenn Beckert or Leo DeRocher.
We were on a road trip. I think it was in Cincinnati, and Beckert and Santo were roommates, and they had 40 of us up in that room. At 2 in the morning, shooting the bull with these guys, talking baseball.
I think we spent a lot of time with the bleacher bums on the road. We've had several parties after a ball game, and you know, the one thing about the bleacher bums, you knew everybody by their first name. They traveled on the road with you. They were like a part of the team.
We just had a wonderful time together, and they kind of inspired us a lot. We got some instructions from them too.
They gave you some tips?
Sometime when I was swinging bad, they said, "Ernie, I mean, you backing off the plate a little bit. Come on, stick in there a little bit." They were really professional type fans. I mean, the bleacher bum. They didn't get on any of the people in left field, holler at them, or say derogatory things to them.
With all due respect to Mr. Cub, he may have been looking back at the late 60s through rose-colored glasses. The fact was that the bleacher bums were just as belligerent to the opposing team as they were loyal to their beloved Cubbies.
It was usually good, clean fun. You know, we'd try to find out a little bit about the guy's private life.
You know, our friends being some of the ball players on the Cubs, sometimes they would tell us stuff. We'd be on a road trip having a few drinks with these guys. They'd go, "Oh, did you hear about such and such?" And they would tell us. And then we'd use that. That would be ammo out here, and it would be fun. You know, and these guys would get mad. Oh, man.
Anybody that came in here with their opposing team, they got on them.
And they somehow found out, like, personal information about some of these guys. Did they get that from...
Real personal information.
Anderson, how'd you like your room down there at the Sheraton Chicago, huh? Room 913, you pervert! Hey, I understand your mother-in-law's coming up from Tulsa, huh? Well, even she knows about Ruthie, huh? And you thought nobody was gonna find out.
They could get on the opposing left fielder pretty well. Not only they extend the getting on the left fielder, but Willie Davis used to play center field, and they used to get on to him a lot too.
Willie Davis, we found out his girlfriend. His girlfriend's name was Ruthie, an ex-Playboy bunny, and so everybody's out here chanting Ruthie, Ruthie, and he was just really getting pissed off, okay? And, you know, he hit 2 home runs that game. In the second home run, he hit it, and he gave us a one-finger salute going around the bases.
There's Willie Davis rounding second base, and you hear Brickhouse saying, Willie Davis is motioning Billy Williams to play deeper in left field next time.
I mean, he was so pumped up, he beat us single-handedly. So
he hit it right here. His left-handed batter. He hit it right here, right at us. No kidding.
He had it in for you guys.
Oh, yeah.
The chant of Ruthie's got the... probably didn't help, guys.
Ruthie's got the... Ruthie's got the...
The production of Bleacher Bums was based on an idea Joe Mantegna, a member of our company, had. You know, he's a big, long-time Cubs fan, and has been hanging out in the bleachers, and he's been telling us about these weirdos that he's been sitting with out there. The way we ended up putting that show together was all of us going to the ball game and sitting with these guys, and we tape recorded their conversations, and we took notes.
Mantegna wrote most of the original Bleacher Bums and based it on our group. It turns out he stood behind us for an entire summer taking notes. And we never knew who the guy was.
Okay, Zig, I got the Cubs today, so what kind of odds? You want what kind of odds?
What the hell are you talking about? You're taking the Cubs. You know who you're talking to here, huh?
You guys have seen that Bleacher Bums play, right?
Yes.
Do you know who that's based on? I don't understand there were some right field guys, too.
It's more about gamblers that sit right up in that, right by that entrance over there. It was more about those guys than us.
It was based more on the right center field people than it was over here.
The one in the left field bleachers were the younger ones.
And the right center.
The right field were probably guys who liked to gamble for a living and were probably a little more mature, a little older.
I did make a few wagers, but I didn't gamble on every pitch.
Norb Kudell has been coming out to the right field bleachers since the 1940s, and that's just about how long he's been making bets on ball games.
There was a bunch of guys that did bet on every pitch, literally.
Yeah.
Foul ball, strike, everything.
Man on first, one away. Double or nothing, they score another run.
You think they're going to score another one?
That's what I'm saying, double or nothing.
You got it. I got double or nothing.
Hey, Zig, Richie's got his finger up his nose. 3 to 5, he takes it out.
3 to 5?
Mike Anderson.
To us, you know, they were the old gamblers, and we were probably the young hippies back then in '69.
They were Bleacher Bums as far as you were concerned.
No, they were pinky ring guys that were out there gambling. They were making their living out there. We were just living and having fun.
Fans are right on top of the action here. They feel part of the game. Bleacherettes can almost reach over and touch the outfielders.
By 1969, the Bleacher Bums ranks had grown to 60 strong, and their bugles, bed sheets, and general hijinks had begun to pique the curiosity of the media. Reporters from the local papers were the first to realize that there was a major story developing out there in the cheap seats.
I was a feature writer and didn't have to be so concerned with the hits, runs, and errors, and so I was doing color, and there was color out there.
Plenty of color.
Plenty of color. They were a national story.
When the Cubs went into first place for the first time since 1945, every assignment editor at 4 newspapers needed a story on the Cubs. But not just the sports department. They would send the feature writers out. The theater guy would go. The food critic would go out. Everybody was out there looking for a story. Well, what better story than go out there and interview the Bleacher Bums? But then pretty soon, the New York Times is out there. The Wall Street Journal is out there. Yeah. And pretty soon, we said, hey, get away. We're watching the ball game.
They got to be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. This article, Call me Mama Bum.
What's it like being called Mama Bum?
I says it's quite a legacy.
Marge Meyer has lived in the house she's called home since 1964. With her husband, she owned and operated Ray's Bleachers, the bar where the Bums would meet up before the game and congregate after.
Ray's Bleacher Bar, that was the place the Bleacher Bums hung out, and Marge was like the mom to anybody. If you had any problems, she'd make breakfast for everybody out there.
Right. And they had a pool table there, and some would dance on the pool table. There were some great times.
My dad sold it in 1980, and we all...
It's now Murphy's Bleachers.
Now it is now Murphy's, and we all moved west.
I take it nobody goes to Murphy's, huh?
Well, if they were loyal to Ray, then they didn't go to Murphy's.
There goes Salma's got him going again on the left field bleachers.
We were bums. We didn't have jobs. It was the summer off.
Literally bums.
Well, you were either a college student, a high school student, out of work in the summer, or we had some other bums that were older, just didn't want to work.
I devised ways to get off of work.
Yeah?
Take the vacation during the summer. And
you told a few fibs to the boss?
Oh, absolutely. I had 14 grandmothers that probably died, and, you know, all the stories, but priorities.
Most of those guys, they drew unemployment. They would come to the ballpark every day and just have a good time.
Whether playing hooky or simply out of work, the True Blue Bums seem to find a way to get to Wrigley Field for just about every game, sometimes much to the chagrin of the stadium security guards.
We used to dress up a dummy sometimes in the opposing team's uniform and hat.
In effigy.
Yeah, and then maybe set him on fire, which was a funny bit.
That was the Pete Rose dummy. We had a dummy of Pete Rose, and we hung him in effigy and beat him up with a baseball bat.
I don't know whether you can do that kind of stuff that they did in the 60s up in the stands or not now, because they're so security-wise out here now.
For the first time in a lot of years, the park's seen some excited fans and some excitement, you know. I think they let us get away with a lot of things for a while because they enjoyed us.
And the triangle on the wall that they put up, the basket, that's all.
That's so you guys used to. We used to
walk the wall, and as many of us who could get up before security could come down, we'd follow Ronnie. He'd have either the bugle or the megaphone. When the security would get down, we'd all scramble, and people would help us. We'd climb underneath the legs of people and scurry along.
It's like the Underground Railroad. We could hide anybody.
There was only 2 security guards in the entire bleachers. Now they have about 50 of them, right?
Probably thanks to you guys.
Well, probably. And the 2, they were called Burns guards back then. Burns security and Andy Frayne ushers. We had the 2 Burns guards in our hip pocket.
Didn't matter. Andy Frayne, Burns, they were all in the same boat. They come out here, we ran the joint out here. You know?
The patients ran the asylum.
Pretty much.
I didn't do nothing.
Wait a minute. I did it. All right, you're coming too. Come on. Hold it, officer. It was me.
Oh, no, I was doing it all. Oh, no, I didn't.
No, I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
Who is that?
That's Jim Riggleman, the manager. Don't throw inside, Riggs.
What's he doing out there?
Tin music, baby. Dragonflies. That's a good question. I said chin music, baby, and he goes,
I know.
Yeah, we love you, too. I said chin music.
What does that mean?
Well, it means throw inside the basket, okay? He turns around and grabs his crotch. Now, what kind of reaction is that?
That's why Leo DeRocher was the best manager there and lived.
Well, and unlike the current manager, who doesn't want to pitch inside because he doesn't want to get in a beanball war, Leo relished that kind of stuff.
The great Leo DeRocher had been retired from baseball for 10 years when Mr. Wrigley coaxed him into becoming the Cubs manager in 1966. If the Bleacher Bums had a patron saint, it was the irascible Leo the Lion.
I tell you guys a good story about Leo DeRocher. He had already left, and he was managing Houston. We all got box seats sat right behind the Houston dugout. We wanted to get on Leo, good-naturedly, because we still liked him, okay? And we just got on Leo for about 5 innings, and finally about the 6th, 7th inning, Leo DeRocher just comes sauntering out of the dugout, looks at Mike Haley, says, look, give me a break. I was out all night last night with your mother and sister, and I'm really tired. And that just shut us up the rest of the game.
I wish that I know the fans here in Chicago are for the ball club. I wish some of the writers would be for them as much as the fans are.
Well, we talked to Ron Sando about that a while ago, and of course, this is the best thing that ever happened to baseball. And one of them, Leo, this town has just gone wild. The Bleacher Bums and all else, and they've supported this club like nothing else.
When Leo came on board in '66, and he said, this is not an 8th place team, and they finished 10th. But then...
He was right.
He was right. But then they started developing, and he gave credibility to Chicago. The Cubs had a real manager, and the players started responding.
There's a long belt by Smith. That one is a home run.
Okay, kiddies, we're back in the ball game for the state December. Big build up to come on, Billy!
Hey, Howard Tucker.
Yes.
You are one of the guys that's been out here for years.
Right.
And maybe one of the characters in the Bleacher Bums kind of based on you.
This was the bell, yep. Mm-hmm.
And when do you ring it?
I ring when they score a run.
Can you ring it for us now?
Sure. Depending on this car, sometimes if they were down like 9-1 or something, I didn't even bother ringing it because it was just a token run.
Why don't you tell us a little something about this person here? Is this a guy or a girl?
Lady.
What color hair does she have?
Hey, I don't know. I'd have to hear her talk. Blonde.
In the Bleacher Bums play, The blonde woman who's sunning herself. Come on, it's you, Jeannie, admit it.
Not me. Not me. Not I.
Kent and Jeannie's courtship took place not just at Wrigley Field, but in buses, planes, and other baseball stadiums.
And we would be sitting at Ray's on a Thursday night and watching a game that was out of town and say, hey, let's go to Pittsburgh. And we'd run to the airport, no clothes, no change of clothes, no suitcase, and take off.
The Bleacher Bums would go on some away trips.
It was marvelous, yeah. There'd be 9 of them sleeping in a room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the greatest was a trip that Mr. Wrigley paid for 60 of us to go to Atlanta. In '69, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He picked up a $10,000 tab. He bussed everybody out to the airport, flew them out there, put them up in hotel rooms, gave them tickets, and brought them back home.
And I think the most unique thing is when we went on the road. And, you know, all the fans there were endeared to their players, and we'd come in their park and start ripping their players, and they go, who the heck are these people?
Did they ever get ugly?
Yes.
Yes, it did get ugly a few times.
When we used to go down to St. Louis, there were 20 of us with blue hats and 39,800 people with red hats throwing stuff at us.
Yeah, anything. They dry cell batteries, whatever.
And that's where, when we got back from the road trip, all of a sudden they said, hey, we need helmets.
The guys had the yellow helmets, the girls had yellow jackets. So we had yellow jackets that matched their helmets.
Turn around, Harvey. This is a great jacket here. Did you painted this yourself?
I designed it, and it was airbrushed by J.J. Figgs.
Harvey Berger and Ronnie Woo Woo Wickers have known each other since they were kids, when they would flip up seats at Wrigley in exchange for free admission to next day's game. Whenever the subject of Bleacher Bums comes up, they adamantly claim to be the true originals.
You got the full uniform. Do you wear this a lot?
Oh, it's a part of my life. It's a place in my heart. When I die, I hope they bury me in it. The Cubs are #1 in my book.
When did they start calling you Ronnie Woo Woo?
Well, back in 1961, Billy Williams was playing left field. And I was going, Billy, woo, Billy, woo, Billy, woo, Billy, woo, Saddle, woo, Saddle, woo, Williams, woo, Becker, woo, Becker.
I can see how maybe the nickname developed. You consider those guys with the hard hats pretenders to your throne? Is that the deal?
I would say that they're a later edition of the Bleacher Bums.
The original Bleacher Bum, me and Harvey, we the one that started the original Bleacher Bum.
If you don't know the Ella Bible, you're not a bum. Ella Bibo.
Ella Bibo.
Ella Bibo, Bible, bum.
Bum get a rat trap, bigger than a cat trap.
Bum get a rat trap.
Bigger than a cat trap.
Cubbies, 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 cubbies. Ziz boom ba.
Ziz boom ba.
Come on, Cubby.
Somebody mentioned Ronnie Woo Woo. It was Ronnie Woo Woo Wickers, the guy that
mentioned him. None of us mentioned him.
He's
a Bleacher Bum.
No.
He's not a bum.
Not a bum.
He was around back then, but he wasn't one of you guys.
No, he was not. He wasn't an original. No.
Manson was around back then too, but we don't mention him either.
I don't recall him being there in '69, but he could have been. But he was big in '70 and on. You know, he's a great guy.
Cubbies, woo! Cubbies, woo! Cubbies, woo! Cubbies, woo!
You know, you're going to give yourself throat cancer in 2 years if you keep that up.
Lady, anything for the Cubs.
Just as there are differences in opinion on who is a bum and who isn't, so too are there differing versions of several stories from Bleacher Bums lore. Take, for instance, the tale of Lou Brock and the Flying Mice.
We found out that Lou Brock was afraid of mice, so we let 8 white mice go.
So we snuck in 24 white laboratory mice.
So we went out, we bought like 12 mice, and we let them out on the field.
When Lou Brock comes running out in the bottom of the first inning to left field, 24 Bleacher Bums each have one white laboratory mouse in hand, and on the count of 3, like hand grenades, boom, we loft them at Lou Brock.
We had him on nylon, 180-foot nylon rope. When Lou Brock saw him, he ran to the dugout, got the ground crew to come out to see where the mice were at. We pulled the mice back in. The next time he came back out there, we put more mice on him, blew his mind, ran back inside.
The problem with that deal was he wasn't afraid of white mice.
It backfires. Billy Williams, the Cub left fielder, comes running out. He's scared stiff of the white mice. He won't run out. The whole game has to stop.
Next year was Bra for Brock Day.
Bra for Brock.
All the women Bleacher Bums took their bras off, waved them above their head, and threw them at them.
After a while, the left fielders with a sense of humor, they'd look back and they'd laugh and they'd throw things up to us, and you know, we got along with them. It's the guys without the sense of humor, we just kept on them and on them.
Rose wasn't smart enough to play along. You get Rosie, Rosie, and he'd get mad, and you get the redneck, and he'd give you the fist.
He loved us. There was one ball player that...
Pete Rose?
Pete Rose loved us.
I threw a pair of crutches at Pete Rose one day.
Did we get the crutch back? Did Rose hand it up?
No, he threw it.
He came over here
and he threw it.
Pete Rose climbed the wall on me.
He climbed the wall to get at you.
To get at me.
Pete Rose climbed the wall?
I told him, come on, let's go.
There's certainly not anywhere near the number of great personalities and good people in the game today that there was 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Oh, prima donnas. I mean, today it's all money today. I mean, come on, it's all money. Back, and they don't have time for you.
We stayed together for 6 years. I'm talking about Sano, Banks, you know, Cassidy.
Core of the team, yeah.
Right. And we got a chance to know those fans up there, and they got a chance to know us simply because, you know, we stayed here a long time.
In those days, you know, the Cubs related to the fans, and they were
not so much anymore, huh?
No, I don't think that's there like it used to be.
Back then, they weren't making the big money, and they always had time for you. They'd go out of their way for you.
And most of the regular players, other than stars, they might be selling shoes in the off-season at Carson Peary, Scott, and Oak Brook at the shopping center. So they were just normal people. They would live next door to you. Now, can you imagine Sammy Sosa or Frank Thomas going into the bar after the game and visiting with the fans like a Ron Santo would back then?
What are your impressions of the current Cub organization? Not too favorable, I get the feeling.
They're not trying to win. And that, to me as a Cubs fan, is a disgusting, sickening, reprehensible thing.
They don't have to spend money for this team because it's not the team that's the attraction here. It's the ballpark.
And the owners know that. And the owners know that, so they don't have to spend money. Why would they?
People come out here, we're going to get the same rotten teams that we've had.
But don't get the idea that because these fellas have to be bottom line conscious that they don't want to win or don't care. I don't buy that.
I used to come out regularly until this year. I'm on strike.
I watch them on TV, but I won't go in there. There's no reason to go in there.
You want to know the truth? I boycotted them this year.
Now, this is the first year since 1958 I have not been to a Cubs game.
By 1973, the Chicago Cubs' winning ways were waning, and it was only a matter of time before the Bleacher Bums would face a corresponding decline.
Then when the Cubs start going south, 73, 74, we went right with them.
After Wrigley lost control of the team, they wanted, the organization wanted nothing to do with anything in the Wrigley era. So they never mentioned Bleacher Bums or anything like that again. They just got rid of all the old Cubs, all the old traditions.
One by one they dropped off, you know, wedding bells are breaking up that old gang, and then an insidious creature was the employment game. Some of them had to get jobs. That was tough.
We all still keep in touch.
What about Ronnie Grousel?
Ronnie Grousel, he's living low. He's living underground out in California.
I think he left about 75. A few people have seen him since, but I don't know.
He wanted to end his career.
As a Cub booster.
Booster, yes. His world was coming to an immediate end. I think he saw Ronnie just before he left.
He said, Ronnie, you take over. I'm out here. I'm going to California. And he said, God bless you and the Cubs. Stick with him. I said, okay, buddy. So long.
I think the love of the Cubs is what drew us all together, and I think we made some lasting friendships that, you know, we carry with us to this day.
You know, the wonderful thing about it, I stayed in Chicago, so I still see these guys. So it was a very close-knit group. It was a lot of fun.
We all, you know, had something in common, sports, and chased the same women. And chased the same women.
And even though they didn't win anything in '69, anyone that watched it and was a fan still has a common bond, that thread that they can still visit. You meet someone that's a stranger, and if you find out you were both fans of the '69 Cubs, you're friends instantly.
After our interview was over, the left field Bums stuck around for the Cubs versus Dodgers game that night. And by the time the first pitch was thrown, they had truly reverted to their old form.
This guy said, I'm a Cub fan. And I know that it's been 1908 since the Chicago Cubs won a World Series. But any team can have a bad century.
Hey, hey, holy mackerel, no doubt about it, the Cubs are on their way. The Cubs are gonna hit today, they're gonna pitch today, they're gonna field today. Come what may, the Cubs are gonna win today. Hey, hey, holy mackerel, no doubt about it, the Cubs